I call this meeting of the Davenport Community School District Board of Directors to order. Director DeFoe, would you please read our vision statement?
Certainly. Education that challenges conventional thinking, prepares all students to compete in a global society, and inspires our students, parents, staff, and community to answer the question, what if?
Thank you. Superintendent Tate, we have a showcase.
We do, Fillmore Elementary School, and I call on Principal Kent Ryan.
Good evening, board members. My name is Kent Ryan. I'm the principal at Fillmore Elementary School, home of the Fillmore Flyers, where we are home to more than 420 students this year. We could talk to you tonight about a number of things that we want to celebrate at Fillmore Elementary School, including that we are home to the longest-serving district employee, Lois Van Manen, who's been with the district for more than 40 years. We could talk about our distinguished alumni, including Robert Scott, one of our district directors. Or we could talk about the fact that at Fillmore last year we had the largest gains in reading in the district on the Iowa assessments. But tonight what we really want to talk to you about is two very exciting after-school programs that are occurring at Fillmore. We highlighted these at the district showcase at the River Music Experience last fall, but we thought it was worth taking time again tonight to dig a little deeper into those programs and find out a little bit more about them. We're very excited about these programs because they reach across grade levels. We have children from grades 1st through 5th who've participated in these programs. We're excited about the partnerships that we have with the community, including John Deere, the city of Davenport, and the state of Iowa. We are excited about the relationship that we have with our family members in this program. We have a number of the family members here tonight, if you'd wave and let us know where you're at, including Ashley Ham, who until recently was a student or a parent volunteer in these programs, but we now have hired her on as a paraeducator in our building. And Ashley has been very instrumental in helping with one of these programs. We're excited about these two programs because they reach across abilities. We have students who are in TAG, students who are in regular general education, and students with IEPs are all involved in these programs. We're also very excited about these programs because of the real-life experiences they provide for kids and how they relate to our core standards, especially in literacy, science, and math. These two programs are led by one of our bravest teachers, Lori Kimmel, who's been with the district for nearly 20 years. Lori will share with you some of the information about each of the programs, but it will be our students who will be leading this presentation tonight. After all, they are the ones who really run these programs. And they include Chris Martell and Lily White, who are involved in our John Deere program on the Lego League, and also Kiefer Hamill, Grace Holbert, and Samantha Brewer, who are involved in the Kids in the Creek program. First, Mrs. Kimmel.
Hi, thank you for inviting us to share. I just wanted to give you a little bit of background on our programs. At 18 years in the district, somebody came in and said, we have this amazing opportunity we're offering to teachers, and it was called the Pisces Grant, and it was through the University of Northern Iowa. And it was a 3-year involvement that taught the teachers involved to really, really teach science and teach it to the passion level. And that's how several of these programs started. I also was involved with the Earth Grant, which was a program to teach environmental stewardship to children. First they taught it to the teachers, then the teachers taught each other, and then all of those teachers teach their children. We're now in our 4th year of Kids in the Creek, and I think these things are important because at almost 20 years of teaching, I thought, I don't really want to be defined by who I was and what I did. I wanted to be defined by what was happening in the future and how am I preparing my kids, not just to come back and say, hi, how are you doing, Mrs. Kimmel, but to bring me their diplomas. And I think these two programs are those things that really engage children and make them want to come to school and learn. One of the things that we do every year in Kids in the Creek is we have an annual creek cleanup, and we had moms, dads, and grandmas in the creek last year. We pulled out huge amounts of garbage. We stopped counting after 12 pallets. We partner with the city of Davenport, and we filled 14 of these bags, I live here bags. We pulled out a pool ladder, and we found this. It's probably our prize. We're not sure what it is yet, but it says Davenport on it, and we're told it's very old, and it's been in the creek a very, very long time. The most amazing thing we found was the front end of a motorcycle. buried in the creek, and we pulled that out, and it's now gone. So we are very proud of their efforts. The other thing I wanted to say is these two programs, Kids in the Creek and Lego League, are STEM related. This is going to put those kids in that STEM way and just kind of push them on to greatness. We're in our 4th year of Kids in the Creek and our 2nd year of Lego League, and it's been so successful. We had over 100 kids try out for Lego League, and only 12 of them made it. So John Deere has stepped up, and they've offered us $3,000 to start the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade robotics grant. So we're hoping that next year we'll be able to serve kindergarten through 5th grade. Let me introduce Chris and Lily.
Hi, my name's Chris. Hi, my name's Chris.
Hi, my name's Lily.
And we want to share with you our construction project.
We had one of the kids bring in their grandpa and tell us what he did when he was our age.
He told us about days back then that we didn't have many things that we have now today. We used more blocks than Legos. We didn't. He had a cane. And we didn't have technology sometimes. So we built an elevator that could help old people move around, because sometimes they cannot do things that younger people can do.
So they demonstrated, they made an elevator. So there's a set of stairs in the front, and there's an elevator, and they've used a certain kit that they have to use, and it runs on a motor, and they probably put 6 different ones together before they came up with this one, and it works. I think I'd ride on it. Do you have any questions for Lego League? We're the only Lego League in Davenport, to my knowledge. Is that correct? Last year we were. Thank you. Okay, where's that one?
Hi, I'm Samantha, and today I want to ask you, would you drink this water from the creek? And are you sure? This could if you drink it with unfiltered, it could have bacteria, sewage, chemicals, plant decay, animal waste, insects, oil, grease, and silt.
Hi, I'm Kiefer, and I'm going to tell you one of the experiments that we did in Kids in the Creek. One of them was fabric. We took a tablespoon of filtered water, and we poured glitter in it, and we got a tablespoon. We took it out, and we counted about how many pieces of glitter we found. We counted about 12 pieces of glitter in the water.
Hi, I'm Grace, and I'm going to demonstrate how we did that. I just put in shells. Okay, and then I mix it up. And there's only about 1, 2. And you mix it up, and there's only about 10 pieces of glitter in the water, because most of the glitter went inside the shells, and they stuck inside the shells. So most of the glitter is on the shells instead of in the water, and that's what we want it to be, so our creek doesn't get so dirty. And we're from Fillmore and Kids in the Creek. Goose Creek.
Kids, thanks so much. Board members, do you have any questions for Lori or any of the kids on their programs?
Anybody? Director Sherwood.
Just a comment. I'm a passionate person about the water quality in Iowa, and I don't know if you kids know it, but Iowa has the second dirtiest water in the United States. We need to change that, and your teacher and you guys are going a long ways toward that by making people aware of all these problems. It isn't just the front end of motorcycles, unfortunately, but it is a lot of chemicals and waste and so forth. But I applaud you because you got to do the job that we haven't done. We have to clean Iowa's water up, and I'm real pleased to see that you're doing that. Thank you very much.
Anybody else? Director Snyder.
I just wanted to thank you guys for coming out and showing that to us, and Chris and Lily as well. You guys did a great job. And for the kids in the creek, what area of the creek do you guys focus on or clean up and work in?
Kiefer, go ahead.
We go in on Division at Goose Creek.
Okay.
We walk up to farmland, which it starts on 80, so we actually are the very beginning of it.
Oh, thank you. Good job, guys.
Anything else?
Board, I would just say thank you and for allowing us to come share this with you. And if you want to come join us on Mondays in March, you can wear the waders in the creek, or we'll let you play with the Legos. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. And as Mr. Ryan opened, and he said it is all about the students. And so Chris and Lily, if you're still here, and Kiefer and Samantha and Grace, really nice job. And thank you, Mr. Ryan, and thank you, Ms. Kimmel. We'll move on to communications. January 20th, we are closed for Martin Luther King Jr. Day. January 27th at 7 p.m. is a regular meeting at the ASC Jim Hester Boardroom. February 3rd, 5:30 p.m., Committee of the Whole, ASC Jim Hester Boardroom. February 4th, 3 p.m., Legislative Advocacy Meeting, ASC Executive Boardroom. February 5th, 4 p.m., Policy Meeting, ASC Executive Boardroom. February 10th, 7 p.m., Regular Meeting, ASC Jim Hester Boardroom. February 17th, Annual Get on the Bus Trip to Des Moines. February 24th, 7 p.m., regular meeting, ASC, Jim Hester Boardroom. Next is open forum for community input. Open forum is a time for members of the community to give input at a board meeting regarding school district issues or concerns. Individuals who want to speak should fill out an open forum request and give it to the board secretary prior to open forum. The board will not act on any issue presented during open forum if it was not published as an agenda item. The Iowa Open Meetings Law prohibits action on any issue that is not on the agenda. The president will set the amount of time allowed for individuals to speak during open forum. The board asks that no charges or complaints be made against individual employees of the district or community during open forum. Remarks that reflect negatively on the character or motives of any person will be called out of order. Tonight we have 5 open forum requests, and each of you will have 2 minutes. And when you come up, please come up to the microphone, state your name and address. We'll start with Sally Ellis, followed by Rob Woodall, Sarah Pullman Johnson, Dick Klein, and Rodney Blackwell. Sally?
Good evening, and Student Council. I wanted to talk, Sally Ellis, 2216 North Nevada, Davenport, retired custodian. I wanted to agree with Dr. Tate on the Whitmire decision. I think it's a good idea. I've always had a concern about kids feeling isolated or not part of the community, and I really think that with the difficult lives they probably have had, that they're in the position that they're in, that it's like sending them off to juvenile hall. I think Whitmire has done a wonderful job with them. I'm not saying that, but they're being isolated. They probably have sisters or brothers that are in the Davenport schools, and they're not. And I think that there's low self-esteem had by them because they're shipped off and can't participate in the sports and everything that the school district does. We have a lot of tough teachers. I think that the Davenport Schools is capable of teaching them, giving them self-worth, and maybe making productive citizens out of them instead of sending them off to jail when they're done at 16. So I commend you for that decision, and I hope that you make it. I just want to say, after all, Davenport Schools is the best place to learn. And I'm very proud of the schools, and I've always have been. And I want to see the Whitmire kids in the right place. It'll be difficult for a couple years, but you can do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. Next is Rob Woodall.
Hello, I'm Rob Woodall from Bettendorf, Iowa. I'm the manufacturing director for Alcoa in the Quad Cities and in 2 other states.
I need your address.
4511 Old Ivy Court, Bettendorf. I also serve on the Family Resources Board. Family Resources Whitmire Learning Center exists to address the unique educational needs and requirements of all of our Learning Center students. Family Resources has a history of serving youth and their families who are in great need of help. We are the experts in child and adolescent emotional, social, and behavioral issues. We know the young people can't learn if their basic well-being is not being addressed. This is why we've had a substantial impact in our students' academic journeys. Our students who require the greatest attention, expertise, and therapeutic school environment are those who reside in our 24-hour care programs. Their academic needs are assessed, and when they are court-ordered into our care, recommendations are made to the Davenport schools on the least restrictive setting necessary to meet their needs. At this time, not one of the 40 students currently court-ordered into our care are attending Davenport Public Schools. This would suggest that our therapeutic school environment is, in fact, the least restrictive setting to meet those young people's academic needs. Please consider Family Resources 2 requests. Number 1, delay your vote on continuing a contract until due diligence has been given to the recently distributed Department of Education document. And number 2, carefully consider the alternative proposal offered to you by Family Resources for the 2014-2015 school year. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Woodall. Next is Sarah Pullman Johnson.
Hello, I'm Sarah Pullman Johnson. Address is 5695 Barcelona Street in Bettendorf. I'm the Family Resources Board Chair and also own a business in Davenport. Family Resources and Davenport Schools have partnered for the past 15 years, and that partnership has had a very positive impact on thousands of students' lives. It's required significant human capital and facilities capital for Family Resources, and we've always been responsive to the needs of the school district, oftentimes on very short notice. For example, in the school year 12-13, we started with 6 elementary students, had 18 by mid-year, and 23 by the end of the academic year. And that was in a year that we had been told by the Davenport schools that we wouldn't have any elementary students. When we learned of Dr. Tate's recommendation that our contract not be renewed for 14-15, we offered proposals for your consideration. Numerous unmet requests have been made for our boards to meet together to have dialogue. We've reviewed the staffing plan provided to you by Dr. Tate, and it's not an apples-to-apples comparison. The proposed increased staffing levels are meant to also support students in the Kimberly Center West. And when you increase the student population, certainly the staff needs will increase as well. The plan does not address the court-ordered supervision of these students, nor does it address the facilities needs for elementary and middle school populations. However, both the proposals from Family Resources do address those needs. As Rob Woodall just stated, recently the Department of Ed issued a guidance document about the use of special ed and general instruction funds. This document does leave many questions and is open to interpretation. Our interpretation, as endorsed by legal counsel, is that our current contractual arrangement is permissible, but additional time is certainly required to clarify these statements made in the document. We have, again, 2 requests. One is to clarify that Department of Ed document, which may take some time and hopefully some meetings between any attorneys that would be involved. And we also urge you to consider fully the proposals presented addressing the needs of all students involved. We hope you'll consider the work with the youth as well as the financial considerations. Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah. Next is Dick Klein.
Good evening. I've had the opportunity to serve on the District of Distinction Committee at the request of Dr. Tate. I'm retired from John Deere and had several management positions with John Deere, such as Vice President of Quality for the corporation, as well as the management of those 3 factories on the other side of the river, about 3,000 employees. During that time,
Excuse me, Dick, for interrupting. I need your name and address.
I thought it was on the form.
Oh, it's on the form. We just need it for the record. On the
Dick Klein, 6610 James Road, Bettendorf.
Thank you. I'm sorry for interrupting.
Okay. Well, during the time of management, of course, we also had insourcing and outsourcing. And basically we had 3 criteria for the insourcing or outsourcing of work. And I think the same 3 criteria might apply into what you're here to consider tonight. One is quality. And I think in my observation and what I've been able to find out from Family Resources, I think the metrics that they have on quality would say that they've been providing for the last 15 years a high quality program. The second thing we considered as criteria was cost. And as I look at the numbers and with the proposal that was made to you recently, leaving the work at the Whitmire Center will save several $100,000 a year, as well as it would save the several $1 million that I understand that you intend to spend to rehab the facility to put these students in. So on a cost-wise basis, the way I understand it, it is more cost-effective to leave it at Whitmire. And the third criteria is delivery.
Hey, Dick, you've had 2 minutes. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
So, sorry to cut you off, but delivery is your third criteria.
Right. Delivering, right.
Okay.
And we've been delivering for 15 years.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Next is Rodney Blackwell.
Dr. Tate School Board. I would like to get or like to see published total numbers.
Excuse
I'm sorry.
me.
Rod Blackwell,
yeah.
2110 Aspen Drive, Davenport.
Thank you.
I would like to see a total cost number on the new Kimberly Center. And I think a lot of people may not be clear, but we will still be operating two centers, the new Kimberly Center and the old one. I would like to see the cost to maintain that and what the actual cost will be per student at these centers. And we also have to consider that the price to renovate this new center does not even include a gymnasium. So we're going to move kids into a school that does not have a gymnasium. And was Lincoln considered to be a part of this plan or not? At a time of cutting budgets, I think we have to look at the best interest for taxpayers and students so that we're not 5 years later looking to redo another plan here. And I think budget cuts should not only focus on students.
Thank you very much. And thank you all for participating in our open forum. These issues are really important, and the information that you bring is really important as well. May I have a motion regarding the consent agenda?
Mr. President,
Director Crumwoody.
I move the consent agenda as presented by the administration.
Thank you. Is there a second? Is there any discussion? Call for the vote. Director Crumwoody?
Yes.
Director Sherwood?
Yes.
Director DeFow?
Yes.
Director Snyder?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of bills?
Mr. President,
Director DeFow.
I move the following resolution as recommended by the administration for adoption of the bills from the bill listing periods through December 5th through December 18th, 2013, and December 19th through 2013 through January 8th, 2014. Resolved, all claims presented to the board, having been duly certified as correct by the Secretary, reviewed by the administration and board members, and they are hereby audited and allowed as just claims and warrants drawn on the Treasury for the several amounts. Further resolved, the payment of claims and salaries be approved as presented for the periods of December 5th through December 18th, 2013, with special release with President's approval, and December 19th, 2013 through January 8th, 2014.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
I'll call for the vote. Director DeFow?
Yes.
Director Snyder?
Yes.
Director Sherwood?
Yes.
Director Crumwoody?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Superintendent report.
Thank you, Mr. President. This Saturday, the 18th, the Greater Achievement Plan will conduct their third Saturday Academy. It will be at the Public Library on Fairmont Street. As you know, our Greater Achievement Plan are for the 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders who need additional help in reading, and these have been wildly popular on Saturday, and we're looking forward to the week when we're off on vacation to actually offer an Iowa assessment preparation period for those if people would like to come to those. The first day that we were coming back to school on Wednesday, because we had Tuesday off, the heat went out early in the morning at Adams School, and that entailed people immediately getting to Adams, finding ways to heat the school, assuring that we'd take all the actions necessary to get the school ready when people came. And I'd just like to read you a list of the heroes. They work in the dark, and they work when we don't know about these things, but they do great jobs for us, and the principal and the staff at Adams were quite complimentary. Jesse Dalton, Jeff Brunmeyer, Todd Lilyblade, Randy Stender, Trevor Mullenberg, Scott Ellis, and Cindy Plaster. And not to be undone, because Central never likes to be undone by anybody, they had a sprinkler system that let loose on Wednesday evening, and so that meant the people had to be out again at night trying to do everything they could to clean up after that. And Dan Burlingame, Jesse Dalton, John Mealy, and Dave McCoy. So again, these are people that work while we're sleeping usually, but keep our school going. And while I'm mentioning people, I'd like to mention Scott Martin. We might have 5 snow days a year, but we have 15 days when the weather is iffy, and he's out there at 3:30 every one of those 15 days checking our roads. So to him, I'd like to say thank you very much. And Cameron, you're the only one left. Anything to report?
Well, the show choir had their dinner theater this weekend. That actually went pretty well. They're excited for the year to start off. As you said, there was the explosion of the pipes and the thing, and that flooded our auditorium. So they've been trying to dry that out these last couple of days and trying to dry out those third-floor classes, because we had about, I want to say, 30 computers get completely messed up from water just flooding all over them. So we're getting that cleaned up, and pretty much outside of that, there's not too much going on at school. I mean, just the quarter just started again, so it's exciting. Ready to get going on this last semester of high school. Yeah.
Mr. President, that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to other items requiring action. I have a motion regarding approval of plans and specifications for district restroom renovations Phase 4.
Mr. President,
Director Sherwood.
I move the board accept approve the plans and specification for district restroom renovation Phase 4. The administration recommends the board approve the plans and specification as presented for the district restroom renovation project Phase 4.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
We will now hold a public hearing on the district-wide restroom renovation project, Phase 4 project, as published in the Quad City Times on January 3rd, 2014. Anyone wishing to speak on this project, please step forward to the microphone. State your name and address for the record. Seeing and hearing none, I now declare the public hearing closed. Is there any additional discussion on this matter? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. Director Sherwood?
Yes.
Director Crumwoody?
Yes.
Director DeFow?
Yes.
Director Snyder?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion regarding approval of architect for 3801 Marquette renovation?
Mr. President,
Director Snyder.
I move that the board accept administration's recommendation to approve BLDD Architects of Davenport, Iowa for the design of the new Kimberly Center at 3801 Marquette Street.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? I have a question. And I know you had some justification for the recommendation, but I didn't take the time to look at the policy on when you require an approval of an architect and what the criteria are that are used for your decision to present an architect. And I was wondering if you could just, for my edification, explain
Sure.
that.
Sure. The board policy approves the superintendent or his designee to present architects for selection. Typically, we've had 2 different projects that really are above and beyond the normal scope of what we typically do in our project or in our building. You know, for example, Central at $25 million and had such specific.
Okay.
Want to make sure you're okay. There was such specific information needed over such a broad area that we sent RFPs to architects and then selected the ones that we wanted to interview. Kimberly Center, when we're all done, was going to be about $8 million. And so when we start getting above, $3, $4, $5 million, and into more specific things like taking a non-traditional building, turning it into a new school. Those are specific talents that I'm looking for when I'm looking for an architect to select.
And is it a group of people that make the selection?
There was. In this particular meeting, we met with 3 architects, and it was the principal of Kimberly Center, Mr. Scott, myself, Tom Hunt, who used to work for the district, and Eric Page is our local option sales tax project leader, myself.
And you use some sort of a matrix, is that right?
This one was more of we had 17 questions that we had prepared for them. Every one went different, kind of depending on how that conversation was leading. We had specific things that we wanted to know. One was, had they ever taken a non-traditional building, a non-traditional school building, and made that into a 21st century learning environment or into a school? That was one particular thing we were looking for. Another one was how they would determine the needs. This is a different kind of building. What we were looking for was how they would go about finding that information to be able to build the building the correct way. We were looking for staff involvement in that particular question, so that we had some good input from the school and the personnel. Wanted to know how they would go about a project like this, because from tonight we have 6 months and 17 days until I'm expecting this building to be done on August 1st. And so we asked them, and every one of them had a little bit different answer on how they would break this project down, because we can't take it all the way to plans and specifications, and then, which is going to be probably March, and say, okay, we need to, you approve them, and then we're going to put bids out to demolish, site work, order mechanical equipment that have long lead times. We were just looking for a variety of answers on that to help us determine who could deliver this project the best way in the shortest time.
So, best way and shortest time, and I was following along with your explanation, your written explanation while you were telling us, and one of the things that I was wondering, because you've made the recommendation, and so how are costs considered in your discussion and in your decision making, and in the way that this whole project will proceed?
Are you talking about architectural costs?
Yes,
or?
architectural costs.
Okay. There's all are in a range of around 6%, 6 to 6.5%. So there wasn't enough between them to say that this is going to be a deal breaker or not.
No, but if they all make it as a percent, I mean, it almost seems, I'm trying to think of the right word, but counterintuitive that they would try to reduce costs, because if it's a percentage, you would increase costs.
Yeah, well, we haven't, you will see that contract when it comes to you. We will, for lack of a better term, beat them down on their fee. I do go for the lowest fee. I do. I mean, I try to get them down to as low as I can get them.
All right, thank you. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director DeFow.
Yes.
Director Sherwood.
No.
Director Crumwoody.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of engineer for Hoover boiler and air conditioning?
Mr. President,
Director Sherwood.
I move that the board accept the administration recommendation to approve KJWW Engineering Consultants of Rock Island, Illinois, to design the replacement boiler and air conditioning systems at Children's Village, Hoover.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? I'll call for the vote. Director Sherwood.
Yes.
Director Snyder,
Yes.
Director Crumwitty,
Yes.
Director DeFow.
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding the Wittenmeyer contract?
Mr. President,
Director Crumwitty.
I move the administration's recommendation that the Wittenmeyer Learning Center Educational Services Agreement between Family Resources, Inc. and Davenport Community School District not be renewed when it ends on June 30th, 2014.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director DeFow.
Dr. Tate, there's been several references this evening about a more recent publication by the Iowa Department of Education regarding the billing tool and what private facilities can or cannot charge districts as it relates to the instruction of students. Can you speak to that and your findings or any conversations you may have had?
Yes, as you know, for a couple of years, we've been working with Family Resources to try to find a way to get around something that came upon us pretty precipitously from Department of Education, where suddenly there was what was called a billing tool that actually was a filter through which charges would be placed from the facility or the contractor, in this case Family Resources, to us. And it caused some major problems because we've been gone for many years with just getting billed for what the services were valued at, and we came to an agreement with that. And suddenly there were certain things that could not be put into those bills, and we found that we were short from the standpoint of us billing other districts that were having residential students, because as soon as they come into Davenport, there are students. So the issue was that we were coming up thousands of dollars short in what we were getting billed and what we were able to bill districts. And both Family Resources and the district worked very hard to work with Department of Education. We worked with our legislators, and we actually had a bill that would help fix that, but it was actually vetoed by the governor, who actually then pointed to the Department of Education, said, you need to come up with some rules and regulations to fix that. And we got what was the fix in late December. And it's a 4 or 5 page document, 7, 8 page document. And what it does is detail very pointedly and focused about what can and can't be billed, and in fact what can and cannot be paid by districts. And essentially when it comes to special education costs, it's just the cost of education, which is detailed either by the IEP or by any of the Department of Education pronouncements or additional funding that might be provided to them. For general education students who aren't on an IEP, it is just the 1/180th of whatever we get per year for that student. So, you know, we question this and we look very carefully, and we reasoned through it to try to find out what we thought it said. We called the Department of Education. We talked to the Deputy Department of Education leader and said, you know, tell us exactly what this document says. Are we reading it correctly? Is it as strict as what it says, that we cannot pay any more than that? And the answer we got back 3 times, because we kept going back, I had more questions, I wanted to make sure we were correct, was that it is a very strict document, and that's exactly what they mean, is that we are only allowed to pay for the educational costs, and those have to be verified if it has to be a special education student, or in the case of a general education student, again, it's 1/180th of whatever we get per year. So it's a pretty strict interpretation of that. We did get both President Johansson and I did get a proposal from Family Resources that we received, and we looked at that, and the numbers provided didn't change much from the contract we now have. In fact, from our reading and our assumptions, it would cost us more next year than we're paying this year. I would just like to return to something I said a few weeks ago when I first provided that, and that it's not about money. And at the best reading from Department of Education, if they would allow us to go ahead with the contract as we've been doing this year and last year, even at the best reading, the plan that I've been working on for the same cost would provide us what I consider a better education, service education for the students. When it's all said and done, even if we add the West Kimberly Center students, we still are at a ratio of about 2.1 students to adults, and the Kimberly or the Family Resources, using the same amount of personnel last year, would be about 2.3% or 2.3 students per adult. So again, I want to say it is complicated with this billing tool and all these things we found, but to me, it's not about the finances, it's about providing support. And as someone mentioned today, we spent months talking about outsourcing custodial services. I don't think we ought to outsource the services to our students.
Director Defoe, did you have anything more there?
I do. You've spoken about the instructional model and the fact that you believe that the students would be better provided for under the Davenport School District. Can you speak about the therapeutic interventions that you're adding to the programming? Because I do think that's one element that people think perhaps might be missing from an instructional model provided by this school district.
Well, I looked at what comes under a therapeutic environment to compare what we could provide and what they're now providing. And for example, at the Wittenmeyer Learning Center, they have a crisis intervention, 2 paras, 2 counselor, and a behavior specialist. Under the model I'm proposing, there'd be 2 certified crisis intervention teachers, 2 crisis intervention paras, a counselor, a juvenile court officer on site, as well as some added services that we've talked, and we have guarantee of a therapist from Lutheran Services and 2 AEA support services. So again, the therapeutic model is the people. That's what that is, and that's the comparison which I've been making.
I'm done for now.
Thank you. Director Sherwood?
Yes. We've had this relationship with Whitmire for 15 years, and you've been involved in it for 2.5. How have we monitored their performance? What have we done to exercise our oversight responsibilities with this program?
Well, until we started working on the contract, probably not very much. We now have someone we hired to be a liaison with the Wittenmeyer Learning Center, and he spends time there, and he is our coordinator with the center. And we have regular meetings between special education, and we have a responsibility that each time a residential student comes in to actually determine what the placement should be. So we have close coordination, but I can tell you since we started working the contract, I think both sides became cognizant of the fact that we needed to be in that together to get through it financially for the first couple of years, and there has been contact from that standpoint.
I guess I have a couple of issues. First of all, can you answer the question of why the proposal that Whitmire shared with you and President Johansson wasn't shared with the board?
It was one that involved money, and what I did was just look and see what the impact was, and I got back to President Johansson on that. And it to me, and I can't speak for him, to me, it wasn't anything that was extremely different. But again, he'd have to speak to why we didn't go further than that.
Yeah. Could you respond to that?
Are you?
Yes.
Excuse me. This is a long and complicated issue, and the history, in fact, is something that I want to talk on a little bit later. But I will say that I believe that this is such a significant decision for the board that I was trying my best to get as much information as possible. The administration had already gotten as much information as it could, I think, and it had evaluated to the best of its ability to make a recommendation based on the information that it had. What I was looking for was, is there something else? Because I think that sometimes other organizations may interpret the way that this board is responsible to the superintendent or vice versa. And I wanted to make sure that to the extent possible, I had extended our hand on behalf of the board to see if there were additional offers that might be made. And so I talked directly with Cheryl Goodwin several times, and she and her staff did come up with a proposal. At that point, the proposal, although it was addressed to Dr. Tate and to me, it was to be evaluated by Dr. Tate for consideration as he makes his recommendation to the board. Originally, I had anticipated, and this was several weeks ago, and I had anticipated the possibility of including a discussion during the committee of the whole last week on the Whitmire contract, which would have allowed the Whitmire staff and president to talk directly with the board on those and other types of considerations that may have been made. It was my mistake in not realizing that we had 6 items on the agenda for that night. And as a matter of fact, we ended up dropping one off. It was very difficult because of the holidays, and I couldn't get everything scheduled appropriately to have that discussion. But this follows normal a normal approach, which would be that the superintendent would evaluate evaluate an offer and would make a recommendation to the board, and then the board can make decisions based on all of that information.
Okay. For me, it also could look like a method of shaping the conversation, the discussion, to a desired end. So I guess I think that when you have a proposal by an entity that we're negotiating with, that the entire board should have the opportunity to see that and make those judgments on their own. And without that information, it's difficult to ask us to make an informed decision tonight. So with that in mind, I move to table this conversation until the time that we have had an opportunity to read that proposal.
There's a motion to table this discussion. Is there a second? The motion fails for lack of a second. I do want to note that Cheryl Goodwin is in the audience and is available if we have questions, and specifically on that offer. I don't have the numbers here with me. I don't know, Dr. Tate, if you do, but I'm sure that Cheryl Goodwin could share those with us if you would like, Director Sherwood.
If we could take a minute to summarize it, I'd
Okay.
appreciate it.
Cheryl, would you mind coming up and explaining a little bit about that offer?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Sherwood. Appreciate that. We put together a proposal for actually the whole board's consideration, and when that was sent via email to Mr. Johansson and Dr. Tate, I asked specifically, again, for dialogue to occur between us and the board. So appreciate the question that was asked tonight. What we did was put a proposal together that addressed several populations of our students that we're working with that we felt like we continued to need to play a very important role in their lives. That would be our 24-hour care students, As mentioned earlier, those are the students that are placed with us by the court system that we have 24-hour supervision responsibility for. And we have been educating those students for about 15 years because of their unique needs. The other two populations that were in the proposal were the elementary students, who have been a very quickly growing population for Family Resources at the Whitmire Learning Center over about the last year and a half. We have been serving elementary students for a number of years and usually hovered around 6 students. Last year, we skyrocketed to about 18 mid-year, and by the end of the year, 23. In fact, we were still getting referrals the last month of school for elementary students. The third population that we asked for consideration, because we understood from the Davenport Schools recommendation that there wouldn't necessarily be a facility for middle school students, and that was a population that we have worked with, that we continue to provide education for that population. One of the things that I think is really important to mention is earlier Dr. Tate talked about the proposal and did kind of a comparison of FTEs, if you will, staff members. And that certainly does address a piece of the therapeutic model of our education programs. But really, it's more about an approach. It's an approach that we have utilized for the last several years at the Learning Center that's very, very critical and important for these kids. It's more than just about academics. It's about addressing their behavioral, their emotional needs, their mental health needs. Until those are addressed, sitting in the classroom and learning is not going to happen. So that was the proposal we asked for your consideration. Aside from that, I would also like to note, besides providing services, we did acknowledge that if the board considered actually taking all of the kids back into the school district, that we did have facilities. We have school buildings. There's been conversation about renovating buildings to make it appropriate and safe for students. We do have buildings on that campus that may end up empty if in fact we're not educating students. And so there was a component of that particular proposal that we asked for the board's consideration of just building leasing. And I would just ask Kelly, Yoe, our administrator, or Mary Schmidt to make any comments that I might have missed.
Cheryl, before either of those make a comment, would you tell us your position there at Family Resources as well? Just so everybody knows.
Oh, I'm President and CEO of Family Resources.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, are there any other comments?
Oh, Dr. Tate mentioned the difference between the proposal, or currently how we're operating, and what our proposal was. And based on our numbers, what we were suggesting as far as serving these specialized populations was actually a reduction of about 122,000 from this current year.
With less students.
Yes, with less students.
You might want to stay up here for a little bit. There may be additional questions from the board. Director Sherwood.
How long have you been on the as president of the organization?
5.5 years. I've been with the organization 26 years.
And in that period of time, have you ever been approached by the district with any suggestions on how to improve delivery of services or anything?
No, we have worked very closely with the district. It's been a really good partnership. And Dr. Tate mentioned the liaison that we've been working with for the last 6 months to a year, and that has been very helpful, I believe. What we have done is we have responded very quickly to the request of the Davenport schools to care for the students that are struggling within their own public school buildings. We've done that in the way that we have increased capacity in our organization, both from a facilities standpoint. We've renovated a number of our buildings in order to increase the growth of these students, and also in our human capital, building of our expertise and the training of our staff. We 15 years ago, we weren't necessarily educators, we were social workers. So we've had to accommodate that as well. From a quality perspective, to my knowledge, the Davenport schools have been happy with our work, and that really would come in the way of the referrals that they've referred to us over the years.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other questions of Family Resources? Director Crumwitty.
Cheryl, or either of you, as you look at the proposal that Dr. Tate put together, and I'm talking specifically of the staffing patterns, it appears to me, as a previous administrator of a special facility, there are certain components in the district proposal that are lacking in the services that you're providing right now. First of all, when I look at the administration and primarily certified principals in the facility, at the present time, do you have certified principals and principals that may have special education background to deal with the population that you serve?
Up until this year, actually, we have had a certified principal. Being the unique setting that we have, we believed this year that based on the needs of our students and the needs of our teachers educating them, they went to a different model of leadership. And so as it relates to special education expertise, we have on staff actually Betty Long, who's retired from the Davenport Community School District, who really provides that expertise as it relates to special education. In addition to that, we have a director of student services who really operates and takes care of our day-to-day issues as it relates to the school. We have a behavior specialist who's been involved with working with these types of kids for, I think, about 15 years, and so certainly has an expertise in that area. And then we also have an additional staff person who provides the curriculum support to our teachers. And so we believe, being a non-traditional school setting, being a therapeutic school setting, it also requires us to have a different approach as it relates to our leadership.
So the proposal that Dr. Tate has put forward to you, do you see that as a good proposal? I mean, are you concerned that our district could not deliver the services that you're delivering at Annie Whitmire? Do you see something that we're lacking in this proposal?
I'm not sure what proposal.
Talking about the
we didn't
staff.
receive a proposal from
Have you not seen the staffing
Davenport
patterns?
schools. Seen the staffing
Okay.
patterns. Mm-hmm.
Do you think things are lacking in that proposal? And do you have any feeling whatsoever that we can't, in our own district, with the many excellent folks that we have in our district, both in general education and special education, is there any reason that you feel that we could not deliver the services equal to or better than you're providing?
Wow, that's a tough one. So let me try and answer the best way that I can, and I don't want to stand up here and compare who could do what better. I don't think that any of us are in a position to really do that, and I think of both entities have tried to not necessarily do that through this exploration phase. What I can speak to is our own skills and our expertises and what we've had to offer these young people. And we're terribly proud of that. We're very confident in the model that we have put together. These young people are, they're struggling, and their needs have not been met up to this point in public school. They're very, very unique, and so they come to us and they feel safe, and they realize that they can learn and grow emotionally, and that actually coming to school can be pretty fun. And so we are trying to provide a safe, therapeutic environment, and I think that we're doing that. I think we're being very successful in doing that. And so when I look at why would we stop doing that, you know, if it's for $100,000, $80,000, I'm not sure that we're all agreeing on the numbers or the exact comparison between how many staff are doing this and that. The bottom line is we're doing a good job. We know our work with these kids. We have responded to your needs over the years. We think we should continue to do that.
And I apologize for, I wasn't trying to get at, well, you're not doing a good job, because I think you are doing a good job. And I've been in this district for a long time, and I know you've served our students well. Where I'm coming from as a board member is just like when we decided several weeks ago about the Edison project here in town, the Edison program. We asked for them to come forward and help us, just like we've asked you to. But as a board member, I don't think we sign a lifetime contract with any agency. And what I'm feeling as a board member about Dr. Tate's recommendation is that perhaps it's time that we try this as a district, because we do have outstanding people. We are, as I understand it, going to have a special facility. So it's not like we're putting them all back into a regular school. And I think from what I see is that the staffing pattern looks pretty good. We'll have some really certified people. We'll have more services, as I see it, from the Area Education Agency. So it looks pretty good. We're not going to know it until we try it. Just like the Edison project, we're not going to know if we're going to succeed at Jefferson until we try it ourselves. And so that's where I'm coming from as a board member. I think perhaps it's time that we might try it on our own to see if we can do it, because I know we have a great special education administrative staff in this district. And my hope, and I've mentioned this at a couple of meetings to Dr. Tate, I hope when we do hire those administrators of that facility, that those people have strong educational administration backgrounds, but also with some special education background. And I think that'll be a very strong program in our district. So that's where I'm coming from, and I hope I didn't put you on the defensive there, but I feel that we have good people, and I would like to see us move forward with this project in our own district.
Thank you. Thank you. Any additional questions or discussion with the family resources? Director Sherwood?
Not any additional ones for them, but
Okay.
afterwards.
Thank you.
Cheryl, the one thing, well, I was just wondering about in sharing the information on the proposal, whether you wanted to share or not the financial part of your offer. You talked about the 24-hour care, the elementary and the middle school, but you also had some dollar amounts attached to some of those. Is that something you want to share right now, or we discuss that later if we need to?
We can. I can just kind of off the top of my head say that it was roughly about $100,000 savings from what the current contract is, or what we would anticipate Davenport Schools paying for services this current academic year. I think what's really important to note, though, is we put this proposal in front of you. Well, we're hoping that all of you would get to see it in the attempt to say we really would encourage you to not necessarily consider all or nothing, but that there are some maybe ways in which we could continue to work together that look a bit different from today, but that we can still offer up our expertise, offer up the facilities and capacity that we have, and that you all could do some things that you'd like to do in terms of trying this, if you will. So that was our hope for a dialogue, was that we would really be able to sit down and say, what could this maybe look like? It doesn't have to be absolutely nothing or absolutely everything.
And the other part, if you could help clarify, because you and I had several discussions, and we had an original agreement between the district and Family Resources on a due date for a decision. And I don't recall what it was, but it was, excuse me, it was a few weeks ago, I believe. And we agreed to put it off sometime, and at the time I think it was back before Christmas, and we agreed that January 13th would probably be acceptable to make a decision. And so some of that has been part of the what's continued to move all these things forward. I just want to ask you, from your perspective, Family Resources perspective, any other perspectives that are important to you, can you talk about the importance of making a decision either tonight or at another time? What's the sense of urgency to you to make that decision?
We last week asked for consideration for the vote to not occur tonight. That was requested to Dr. Tate and to you, Ralph, because of the recent document from the Department of Education that Dr. Tate referenced and gave you a little bit of explanation about. That came out just a couple of weeks ago. And there are a number of different interpretations of that document. I know Dr. Tate mentioned having a conversation with the deputy director at the Department of Ed. I've had conversations with some of my colleagues across the state who also operate educational programs in a similar model to ours between the public and private. And they are having conversations with the Department of Ed and their attorneys. There's multiple interpretations of this document. This document is brand new, and it's called a guidance document. So I don't believe that it's been vetted appropriately at this point, and so that's why I requested that that you all consider delaying the vote until there's been opportunity for that, as well as opportunity for us to just have discussion between our board staff together about other alternatives for this partnership.
So it's still kind of open-ended. Originally, we had a specific date, and I just want to make sure so the board has an idea as we have this discussion tonight, because there still has to be I mean, you probably would want it as soon as possible, but is it open-ended to that extent? How much latitude does the board have?
Some latitude. I don't have a date off the top of my head. There's been several years that a contract hasn't been signed until the start of the school year, so I think our effort to have a date in this year's contract was to address that, and that we were needing to plan appropriately and have enough time. So if the board needs more time and is willing to consider more time and have more dialogue and allow attorneys and DOE to sort through this guidance, then we are willing and asking for that time to happen.
All right, very good. Thank you, Cheryl. Move on to additional discussion. Director Sherwood, you had something a few minutes ago?
Yes, can you tell us, Dr. Tate, what your plan is for the elementary and intermediate kids?
Well, all of the grades, elementary through high school, would be in the current Kimberly Center. Additionally, we would have the students, the high school students, who are in the current Kimberly Center West together. So it'd be one program. That was our plan. That's the way we actually planned the finances and the structure that I gave you.
Okay. I have a real concern about putting kids into that building. As you know, the reports on it is that it was not sustained. Winds in excess of 80 miles an hour, and that's an issue I've been presenting for 25 years, and I would not be in favor of putting more kids in there, especially if there's an alternative of perhaps using facilities of Whitmire that might be safer for these kids. That would be a major thing for me, so I just want to make that point.
Any additional discussion? Director DeFau.
I have to say that I'm completely torn because I want to support my superintendent, and something that resonated with me in an earlier conversation that we had was Dr. Tate's comment that if he's going to be accountable, he needs to be responsible. And currently that responsibility doesn't rest with him, it rests with Family Resources. And that did resonate with me, most definitely. By the same token, I think there have been several questions raised here tonight and some inconsistencies in terms of cost factors and proposals that haven't been fully shared with the board that give me pause. And, you know, I'm a byproduct of the Wittenmeyer Learning Center. I don't think there's any, I haven't made any secret of that. It was my first job. And I worked with two of the three women that spoke to us at the podium tonight. So, you know, it's a place that's dear to my heart, and I do realize the positive impact that it can make. At the time that I was first there, the school district managed the program that was on site, and the staff were employees of the Davenport School District. We moved away from that model, but it's certainly one that I think hasn't been fully explored by the board. You know, based upon all of those elements, I think I will reiterate Director Sherwood's motion to table this conversation or this vote until a time we can have further conversation and put to rest some of these unanswered questions.
It's a strange way of putting it, and I'm not sure when you said reiterate if you're actually making the motion to table.
I am.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. I apologize again. I don't know all the particulars with respect to Robert's Rules of Order with respect to tabling. However, I am going to allow discussion on the tabling motion. Is there any discussion on the motion to table? Director Cromody.
I need to ask Dr. Tate, by tabling this and not knowing what kind of timelines, what kind of timelines are we under as a district to get started if we're going to move this program back into our district? I would think you would need some kind of turnaround time really quick to get this all accomplished. I mean, we are talking second semester here, and those weeks are going to fly by fast. So what kind of timelines are you thinking that we need if we're going to move this program and be up and ready to go by the time school starts?
Well, initially, we had all talked about the 1st of December. That's what the contract says, because we all knew that would probably give us enough time. I worry about the employees currently at the Wittenmeyer Learning Center to make sure they know what's going to happen next year, but we have flexibility. I can't say, gee, if you don't decide tonight, this can't be done. We would just have to make it work, but I certainly think that if you decide to not do this, that quickly, it can't be a matter, we're going to spend a month with lawyers, talking to DE, boards talking. We have to have a plan, 2 meetings, and let's get to it.
Is there any other discussion on the motion to table?
Just
Dr.
a
Sherwood.
point of information, Mr. President. The Robert Rules does, in fact, state that there's no discussion allowed for tabling, and we are required by state code to follow that as our default rule book. The Iowa Association of School Boards does have a small guidance device that we might want to get, but we should not be discussing this.
Well, I appreciate your comments, and Robert's Rules is accepted by this board as the default. However, there are other provisions that are allowed, including precedents. And since I've already allowed it, I'm going to continue to allow it. Is there any additional discussion? All right, seeing none, we're going to call for the vote to table. Director DeFau.
Yes.
Director Sherwood.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
No.
Director Crumwitty.
No.
My vote is yes. The motion to table passes. And we'll discuss a little bit later. I've been looking at the calendar. We do have a meeting on the 27th, and I'll work out particulars with the superintendent and with Family Resources on a time. We may have to have a special meeting somewhere in between there. We'll move on to superintendent goals.
Thank you, Mr. President. Following your example of having two priorities, I provided what I call a minimalist superintendent goals. Following much like the goals I've had for the last 2 years, student achievement, the achievement gap, the graduation rate, affirmative action, and board priorities. The first being that student achievement. All students taking the Iowa assessments will increase proficiency in math and reading by at least one academic year. The achievement gap for each minority group below the district average on Iowa assessments in math and reading will decrease compared to last year. And graduation rate, the district graduation rate will increase compared to last year. Affirmative action, assure that implementation of retention and hiring practices increase the number of teachers and administrators so that the workforce more nearly mirrors district student diversity. And board priorities, support the board priorities concerning improving district climate and reducing the impact of poverty.
Thank you. Is there a motion regarding superintendent goals?
Mr. President,
Director DeFau.
I move that we approve the superintendent's goals as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director DeFau.
Could you speak a little bit as to why there isn't a percentage attached to either the reduction in achievement gap or the increase in graduation rate?
I could do it. It would be a wild guess, and I just don't know what I'd base it upon. What I try to do and what we're doing with our even our matrix is just getting better year after year after year. So I wouldn't know what percentage to put down there. Again, if the board felt that the percentage should be there, I certainly don't have an objection, but I don't have any educated guess of what it would be.
Well, I don't support putting in a number for the sake of a number, but I do think that as this continues to be a concern and probably an area that will be reflected in future goals, that we may want to have some conversation as to what we think is a meaningful progress.
Is there any additional discussion? Okay, we'll call for the vote. Director DeFau.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director Crumwitty.
Yes.
Director Sherwood.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding minimum unspent balance?
Mr. President,
Director Sherwood.
I move that the board accept the administration recommendation to approve the health benefit plan reserve target at an amount equal to 6 months of the estimated maximum annual plan year cost.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
We're on the motion right above that.
I apologize.
That's all right.
Minimum unspent balance. Okay, good. Administration recommendation, the board established an unspent balance target of 5% of maximum general fund budget authority.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion? Director DeFau.
Reference this as a target. I assume it's not one that'll be achieved overnight. Do we have any plan as to how we expect to move forward, or is this something that we do want to begin operating under immediately?
Marcia, this is what we've been aiming at with our annual reductions, and this is the one that we're talking about if we go to 2 or 3 million per year that we will reach. Is that a correct interpretation?
That's correct. That information was shared with the board back in December with a plan as to how we would reach that target.
Director DeFau, did you have anything more? You look like you
I'll
still
take
had
it at
questions.
face value. I will just make a comment that that sometimes it would be nice to have the information re-presented in the board packet when it's been a period of time since we've had the conversation.
Okay, thank you. Director Sherwood.
This was the number that Larry, what's his name, Isvas mentioned when he was here?
Yes, that's the recommendation that he made.
Right, okay.
And I'm sorry, but I thought that information was put in the board packet. And if you would look, I believe it would be on page 3, projected unspent balance. There's 5 or 6 scenarios listed there, and those were all based on to reach a target of the $8.5 million.
I think it's the health plan on top that confused me.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Any additional discussion? Marcia, I guess, did you and Larry have any further discussion? After that meeting, there was at least my thinking was that there was going to be a decision made by the two of you. And is that the 5% that you're talking about? Was that a mutual decision?
That was based on the recommendation from Larry, and he based that on looking at statewide averages where other UENs were at, and said that he would recommend between 5 and 10%, and I took the lower edge of that.
And I guess that's kind of where my mind was. I thought he was somewhere higher than that. So why would we want to target at a lower end of that range?
I took the lower end of the range because previously we had talked with the board of having an unspent balance of $8 million, and that was based on unspent balance per pupil of $500 per pupil, and that was set back in March of 2012. And I didn't want to stray too far from that because that is the projection that we had been using in our public hearings. And when we've been presenting information, we've always had that target of $8 million. And since that fell within the range of what Larry's recommendation was, I stayed with it because that's information that's been shared. But obviously, we can take the upper end of that also if you'd like. That just increases the amount that we would need to reduce in the next couple of years.
Does this, even though it's just a target, can you explain how it would affect the unspent budget authority? You said we would be at $500 per student, is that correct? With the $8 million, if we were at 5%?
Right.
But
it would be around the same, it'd be in that same general area, yes.
And can we attain that within 2 years?
Not with, well, we can within 2 years. It's just a matter of how deep do you want budget reductions to go. We had presented a plan that would go 3 years, and the budget reductions would be between $2 and $3 million each year. You can shorten that time frame. You can increase the dollar amount. It's all a matter of identifying reductions to go with it.
So when Larry was talking about that chart, really in the upper right-hand corner of the second page of your document, what he was talking about was the trend line there, which crosses the 0 point at some point if we don't reverse or change that trend, which is what you're trying to do by using this target. But I thought that he also said if we didn't do it within 2 years, we're going to cross that line.
If we don't make any budget reductions for the next 2 years, we will cross that line.
But you're confident with this target and with the budget reductions that you recommend that will be okay with respect to our unspent budget authority?
If we make budget reductions between $2 and $2.5 million for each of the next 3 years, we will maintain that $8 million unspent balance, which will keep us at approximately 5%.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion? Call for the vote. Director Sherwood?
Yes.
Director DeFowl?
Yes.
Director Crumwitty?
Yes.
Director Snyder?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding minimum health self-insured fund balance?
Mr. President,
Director Snyder?
I move that the board accept administration's recommendation to approve a health plan reserve target at an amount equal to 6 months of the estimated maximum annual plan year costs.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Just a
Director Sherwood?
Marcia, what would it be in dollars?
In dollars, that is going to be approximately $14.5 million.
And where are we currently?
We're about twice that.
I thought so. Thank you.
Any other discussion? I have a question, Marcia. Why would you recommend making that? What I see is, I don't know if you call it a reduction, actually, but you're just saying this is a target, is to go to 6 months. Is that some sort of generally accounting principle, or?
No, it is a recommendation from our insurance consultant, and it is also currently reflective of what administrative procedure is as to where we establish the health insurance plan reserve.
So, and maybe I have forgotten some of that discussion, but I thought the insurance consultant recommended that we maintain a pretty high reserve there. I don't recall that he made a recommendation to reduce it. Am I mistaken?
No. When asked for his recommendation, he recommended the 6 months and said that that's pretty common. When asked for a formula as to how to put that together, there's a formula that's based on what your maximum exposure is and then a percentage of that. When you boil it all down, it comes down to approximately the same thing as a 6-month reserve. And so we thought, just to make it more understandable, we would just say a 6-month reserve.
Director,
go ahead.
well, in your professional opinion then, is, because we've got some sort of continuum here from 0 months to any months we want, is 6 months your professional opinion? I mean, it could be 7 months, 8 months, 10 months, but is 6 months the right number?
I'm comfortable with 6 months. I wouldn't go any lower than that, certainly. I would probably be in the maybe 6 to 9 month range. I don't want to put any more money there than we need because I don't feel that that's a proper use of funds. We're probably not using them to the best of our ability. On the other hand, we don't know because we have an uncertainty as to what the implications of the Affordable Health Care Act are going to have on our self-insurance fund. We have people that we're going to have to be affording health care to that we currently don't. We're going to have increases in insurance somewhere down the road. We're going to have open enrollment periods that we don't know what the impact is going to be. We have fees that are going to be handed out, and there's many provisions of the Affordable Health Care Act that we don't have dollar figures to yet as to know what the impact is going to be. I would say 6 months would be the very minimum that we would keep, and if we know more of that information as it comes out, since we're currently twice that we might want to adjust it if we know that there's going to be more of an impact.
Thank you. Director DeFowl.
As I recall our conversation regarding the health plan reserve, I view this as a floor, not a ceiling, and that I look at it as a way of protecting the reserve from one too many insurance holidays as we look to Band-Aid budgets as opposed to making sustainable cuts. So, I don't think that this should be by any means interpreted as the maximum that we should maintain, but rather the minimum that we should maintain.
Thank you. Is there any additional discussion? All right, we'll call for the vote. Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director Crumwoody.
Yes.
Director Sherwood.
Yes.
Director DeFoe.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding appointment of medical director?
Mr. President,
Director Sherwood.
I move that the board accept the administration recommendation to appoint Naomi C. Chile. Pardon, I apologize for the pronunciation. MD as medical director for the Davenport Community School District, beginning the second semester for the 2013-14 school year, for the fee of $3,150. Annual fee is $6,300.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Well, I apologize for me having so many questions tonight. As I looked at that, I wondered, here it says annual fee is $6,300, and where does that annual fee come from? Is that a requirement somewhere?
That's a fee that was agreed upon and established, as far as I can see, back in about 2006, and it's never changed. And Dr. Garvin, who's been our medical director for that period of time, was always okay with that being the fee that he received for his services. I had a discussion with him in August, and he was willing to continue through this last year, but then wanted to resign after that for personal reasons.
So the $6,300 was originally a contract between the district and Dr.
Garvin.
But there's no state set fee or something like that.
No,
and so this was just a continuation.
Yes.
The way that it was set up.
And when we approached Dr. Celli, she really didn't have a number in mind and wanted to know what past practice had been, and so we told her, and she was okay with that fee.
One of the things that I had wondered over time, $6,300, is it a lot of money? Is it a little money? Is it worth it? And you've provided the scope of services that are included, and I was wondering if there's some way you could characterize, I mean, is this kind of like a retainer for Dr. Celli, and are the services of the medical director utilized frequently, infrequently? I wish you could just provide me a characterization of that, and also, is there a requirement for a district medical director?
There is no requirement for one. Quite frankly, that was part of the discussion that occurred when Dr. Garvin told us that he wasn't going to want to continue in that position. So I talked with Marcia, I talked with Dr. Tate. We looked at code to see if there was any responsibility for us to have a medical director, and there wasn't. In terms of how frequently do we use the person, it all depends. Depends on our student population, the needs that might arise. It depends on if we're rewriting policy in terms of how we handle medications in the schools or some of the nursing practices that we have in place. So it kind of depends on all of those situations.
And
We also use the person for employee kinds of issues too. We use them for FMLA things and also for 504 plans occasionally to consult with us on those kinds of things. And those can be for employees or students. The medical director helps with prescriptions for our EpiPens that we have in all the buildings for allergies for kids. We have that as an emergency item in every building. This just recently helped with writing a prescription for tubing for students who have to have nebulizers. And we had a situation happen this year where there was a student that needed a treatment and there was no tubing in the building. So now we have that as a result of that situation. So there are some times when I think we don't want to not have the advice of someone that functions in that role.
I understand that, and in fact, sometimes I wonder about having our legal team on a retainer basis as well, but we have them on an hourly basis. And that's part of what I've just been thinking about is when I look at these, the scope of services, and I think about what you're saying, and I think $6,300, and what is that? Is that 2 hours? Is it 30 hours? That's all I'm looking for, is a sense that this is the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And
I mean, I don't have that information right now. That's something that I could probably gather and look at the last couple of years, how often we've contacted the person and what kind of support they've gotten. But the specifics I don't have right now.
all right, thank you very much. Oh, Director Sherwood.
Yeah, you raised a couple of questions with me. Greg Garvin is a highly regarded pediatrician, and it seems to me that if we're looking for a skill set for a medical director for a school district, that pediatrician meets that pretty nicely. I'm not sure that's the case with this lady. Now, I understand that part of what her duties would fit well, but when you're talking about working with nurses for procedures for kids, having a pediatrician, it would seem to me, would be a more sensible skill set.
But in her role, she sees patients at every age. So we, took that into consideration, but also took into the consideration the relationship that we have with her, the way that she's been able to provide support for us through our workers' compensation. She also provides support to us sometimes when we're hiring new people who don't have, maybe they're coming from out of town and they don't have a way to get a physical. So it's been a really good working relationship, and we looked forward to continuing that in another way.
The reason I bring it up because of something Ralph said, that if we had this person on an hourly basis, we could actually split the responsibilities between two people. We could have a highly skilled pediatrician who is up to date on the research and what's going on with kids. At the same time, someone like this lady who has a broader base of medical knowledge, perhaps, and more applicable in other areas. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does. That seems like something to consider.
Director Defoe.
I'm scared. Bill and I had the same question. I should be. Oh, goodness, that's twice tonight. By my calculation, $6,300 divided by 1,080 hours is $9 an hour, is what we're paying for the services of the doctor.
You're saying $9 an hour to be on call.
Yeah.
But not to actually provide, if
it's
the
an
doctor
hour-
only works, I'm sorry for interrupting.
And I apologize for interrupting you, but if it's an annual fee, and that's the number of instructional hours we're required to have, which is fairly modest, but I agree with Director Sherwood. I had the same concern, that is her area of expertise such that she has thorough knowledge of pediatric needs? That was my question as well. So in our engagement with her through Concentra, is she being paid by the insurance company or by us?
For
the workman's compensation and other.
Well, it's paid by us.
Okay.
Through the insurance company.
Okay. Is that, then that arrangement is above and beyond the $6,300?
Yes.
Okay. Do we know what that is?
Well, that depends on how many workers' comp claims we have. Is that,
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I don't have a dollar amount for that right now.
Okay. For the remainder of the year, I'm willing to support it, but we may want to consider other options as we move forward to the next academic year.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Director Snyder.
Just got one other question in the fact that since she does work with us closely right now through workman's compensation injuries, putting her in another role with the district, would that, or is that setting us up possibly as her serving like any conflicts of interest?
I don't think so. I mean, not to the best of my knowledge.
Okay.
And I don't think she felt that way either, because she considered this before she accepted that we would put her name on the board for this.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? I'll say I agree with Director DeFau, and for the remainder of the year, it's certainly reasonable. I agree with Director DeFau and Director Sherwood that there might be other options.
Okay.
So we'll go ahead and call for the vote. Director Sherwood.
Yes.
Director DeFau.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director Crumwitty.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding master data sharing agreement?
Mr. President,
Director Crumwitty.
I move the administration's recommendation that the board approve the master data sharing agreement between the Davenport Community School District and St. Ambrose University on behalf of the Achieve Quad Cities Partnership.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director Sherwood?
I just want to comment, and I appreciated the thorough discussion that occurred in this document. I thought it answered all my questions, so thank you.
Anything else? Director DeFau.
Are parents going to be informed of the data sharing, and are they going to have the opportunity to opt out?
No, they would not under the provisions, because if we have it and they haven't, there's no way for them to opt out of our data gathering. This suggests that in the areas that we talked about, the school readiness, third grade reading, attendance 6th, 7th, and 8th, credit accrual 9, 10, 11, fourth year graduation, and post-secondary success, we would turn all that over. That's what this assumes.
Any other discussion? Call for the vote. Director Crumwitty.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director Sherwood.
Yes.
Director DeFau.
I abstain as an employee of St. Ambrose University.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. We'll move on to policy review. Director DeFau.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Policy Committee brought forward, prior to the holiday break, 2 policies for discussion. I now would like to move that the board approve these policies based upon the Policy Committee's recommendation: 60207, curriculum implementation, and 60208, curriculum evaluation.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I would just mention that there were some significant recommendations that this policy be trimmed and the majority of it be moved to administrative regulation.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Call for the vote. Director DeFau.
Yes.
Director Sherwood.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director Crumwitty.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. There are no discussion items. We'll move on to administrative reports.
Thank you, Mr. President. While Julie's coming up, she's going to give you the latest update on the teacher Leadership and Compensation Committee that we have, which is a result of the state providing us planning funds and challenging us to, if we want to, it's not mandatory, putting in a suggestion for use of these funds for our own leadership model. And we've had a lot of people working very, very hard and diligently. It's due at the end of this month. We'll provide this to you for approval at the next board meeting so that we can then, in the grant, indicate that you approve it. So, Julie, I think you'll cover everything else they need to know.
The districts across Iowa are in a wonderful position that this funding opportunity is being made available to them. It's the intent that this will impact every district across the state within the next 3 years. The teacher leadership and compensation system is written into the law, and it has some very lofty goals to attract able and promising new teachers, to retain effective teachers, to promote collaboration amongst teachers, encourage professional growth in their practice, reward initiative and competence, and to improve student achievement by strengthening instruction. So we frequently look at how can we improve student achievement, and we look at the student. This really looks at the teaching practice and what it would take to improve student achievement. This is the timeline for this whole process. In August of 2013, the Commission finally released their ideas and their recommendations, and in September of 2013 we were able to apply for a planning grant, and we received that. So we've been using those funds currently to create our plan. In January, at the end of this month, our plan will be provided to the Department of Education for their consideration, and we will find out in March of 2014 whether or not we are in the first round. There's 3 rounds. These are going to impact 1/3 of the students the first year, 1/3 of the students the second year, and the final 1/3 of the students in the last year. So we hope that we are in the first cohort, and that we'll find that out in March, and then we will begin our implementation of our plan beginning in the fall of 2014. So it's a lofty, ambitious grant, but we really believe that we had many of the components to begin this process and to really improve student achievement through this idea. The teacher leadership has several different models. The first model is called the Teacher Career Path, and that's the model that was recommended by the task force. And in that model, there's different teacher leadership roles, which include model, mentor, and lead teachers. Another model that we are allowed to consider would be an instructional coaching model. In that, there are model teachers, instructional coaches, and curriculum and professional development leaders. And then the third model is what they call a comparable plan model, in which we can take, there's 5 non-negotiables that you have to consider in your plan. You can take those and then create your own model. We had a committee and subcommittees that have worked on this for quite a while, and the committee thoroughly recommended that we do the comparable model, but that we base our model on the teacher career path. It's our committee's belief that by building leadership amongst our teachers, we're going to have the largest impact on student achievement. So there's 5 things that you have to have in your plan. One is the minimum salary of $33,500 for teachers. We're already at that, so none of our money will go towards that component. For new teachers, you need additional coaching, mentoring, and opportunities for observing instructional practice. We believe that we have a very well-grounded new teacher induction program in Davenport. This grant is going to provide us with opportunities for additional mentors for more release time so that teachers can observe each other, and they'll also be able to have model teachers in the district that they'll be able to observe. We need to have differentiated, multiple, meaningful teacher leadership roles, and that's where we come in with our lead teachers, our mentor teachers, and our model teachers. We need to have a rigorous selection process. We have worked with several different organizations to develop that rigorous selection process, and feel very comfortable that in our grant we have what it takes to find the most qualified people for these positions. And then you need aligned professional development, and all of these positions have additional days for professional development built into the grant. So the leadership roles that we're looking at are the initial teacher, that's our new teachers coming in and being supported by the other teacher leadership roles. They'll have career teachers, and career teachers are what we have now. It's the teachers that come to school every day, do their job, provide all of the types of leadership, and are just happy to be a teacher. The model teachers are going to be the teachers that we have in our district right now that we know have really good techniques that they're utilizing. Student engagement, how are they doing grouping, classroom management, all of these kinds of model teachers, and they will be identified and then provided with opportunities for people to come and see them, teach, and to discuss with teachers their practice. We currently have mentor teachers, and under this new model, our mentor teachers will not only have more time to work with their initial teacher, but they'll also be working with career teachers in supporting them with any kinds of initiatives that we're taking on in the district. And then there's the lead teacher, and lead teachers are the teachers who will work with the building student achievement team to figure out what's the direction our district, our building is going to go. They'll provide coaching and support to classroom teachers, and really carry out the mission of all of the initiatives that we have going on. The rigorous selection process will include a selection criteria. It'll include the process of how we will do this. There will be an annual review of assignment so that people will come into these positions, and at the end of 1 year will be reviewed to decide whether or not they will continue in that role. They may decide that they don't want to continue in that role. We see this as a very fluid process, that you may come in as a mentor teacher and find out that, you know, this was really, really a great experience for me, but now I would like to be a lead teacher. And so then you might take on the lead teacher role for a while. You decide, you know, it's a big job, and you've got some family things that are coming up, and so that you might want to just go back and be the career teacher for a while. So it is fluid. It's also based on experience and providing professional development. So it's through these recommendations, it's the hope of the Teacher Leadership and Compensation Committee to attract and retain the most highly effective educators possible, which will ensure that DCSD children receive a world-class education. So my closing statement for you is that when we come back in 2 weeks asking for your vote of approval for this process, I just need to know what additional information you would need to have in order to support this initiative for our students.
Are you asking that question right now? You need to know what kind of information we'll need for the 27th?
No, but I do, if there is additional information, if you could just get that to me so I make sure you have everything that you'll need, because the grant is due January 31st, and we wholeheartedly hope that we have the support of the board.
Well, Julie, we need to provide them those matrices that we have to show how many teachers, what the cost
Okay.
is, how much additional training. I mean, those are things that they need to see. So we should probably try to get them out to them as soon as possible.
This board packet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for the report. Are there some questions or comments? Director DeFau.
My only question would be, will that information include how much instructional time mentor and lead teachers will be losing from the classroom? Thank you.
Yes, it does.
Director Sherwood.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank you, and I know how much time you put in on this, and please extend a thanks to the committee, because I know they put a lot of time in, too. I sat in on a couple of meetings, and I don't think I get notified about the rest of them, but one of the conversations that was ongoing at that time was how we distribute these folks through the district, and I had made the point that we have an opportunity here to beef up staffing at no additional cost in some of our lower performing buildings. And I wondered if that conversation had been pursued, whether or not we're still looking at putting as many people in Eisenhower as we are in Jefferson, or that we have, in fact, decided to differentiate on these buildings.
Every building at the elementary level will have one lead teacher. The mentor teachers will be in a variety of locations, so it won't just be that this building. Those are based on qualifications, and model teachers could be anywhere. We're looking for the very best of the best.
Okay, but we are not using this opportunity, though, to strengthen instruction in those lower performing buildings, though.
We believe that through this model that the lead teacher and the literacy coaches at the elementary level will support.
Well, I understand, but we're still treating them all the same.
Yes.
All right, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Anything else? All right, thank you very much for your report. Thank you. Superintendent Tate, is there any other report?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to board reports and requests. Are there any reports, requests? We've got two board requests here. One is an agenda item request from Director Snyder dated 1/13/14. Return to a discussion on looking at going to electronic board packets and minimizing the amount of paperwork we currently have. We have an information request from Director Snyder dated 1/13/14. Have we as a district looked at the possibility of an alternative middle school? Have we had any interest expressed in an alternative learning environment by our students, parents, teachers, or the public focused on middle school aged students? Thank you very much, Director Snyder. Any other reports or requests? Well, I've got one report. I had several, but I lost track of them over the evening's meeting. But it was a fun fundraiser event the other day over at North. I only had a chance to stay for the dinner. There were events afterwards, but it was a nice event. A lot of participation by a lot of the students and staff, and just very appreciated. If there are no other reports, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. This meeting is adjourned.